people still would have been living if they did the reclaim before 92. Because people walk in it, bathe in it, drink water from that area.
There's no reason why we should live with these conditions. There's no reason why we have science that exists, technology that exists that can address this, and yet here we are in 2020 and it's still here.
My father worked in uranium mines for many years, and I saw the results of that, the ingestion of uranium and being affected by it every day. I know my father would take his thermos, and he would go and collect water and bring his jugs of water home, and you know, I'd always be the coffee maker, so I'd be using that water, and he told me how delicious that water was, and it was.
If you talk to some of our Navajo elders prior to World War II in the 1930s, 1940s, private companies tried to come in and establish mining operations, and we told them, no, you can't. But when World War II happened, the United States, to support their Manhattan project, needed uranium, which ultimately developed the first nuclear bomb. And we have a lot of uranium ore here, and so they naturally came here. They mined tons, thousands of tons of ore, and then essentially left without any reclamation or remediation. So since the 1970s, 1980s, when the last mining operations closed down, you have families that have been chronically exposed, probably 7 decades or so, to radiation from those sites. So cancer, that's a big issue, and then other types of diseases, so health issues with kidney, liver problems, heart problems, just a whole array of different types of diseases that weren't common prior to mining. Historically, we were healthy people, we didn't have these issues, and then you see these types of issues even more rampant in communities where mining took place. And so if you look at it from a cause and effect standpoint, it makes sense.
So right here is the access road to get up to Claim 28. On top of that mesa is the actual mine where the mining took place. I believe 91,000 cubic tons was mined at this certain location. This is where we're having a lot of our water issues right here, is because a lot of the drainages that come from here are going towards the homes located around here. This is where a lot of the residents say that there used to be springs up here, and they used to come up here to gather water, and they used to come up here to water their livestock.
The water is the main concern for them because water is life, and they need water for drinking, for domestic purposes, for farming, for livestock.
We make sure that the water we provide is good water that meets our water quality standards, but the issue that you have is access to the regulated water sources, and where you don't have access, people have no choice but to use these unregulated sources. It wasn't until mining came in and that we have these types of water issues. A lot of our older people that have historically used them for ceremonial purposes and stuff still use those water sources, and so it's a tough issue where water is kind of scarce and precious. Radiation exposure at any level, low or high level, can cause serious problems like cancer. If you're living in the vicinity, if it gets into your water, if it blows into the air and you ingest it, then you're exposed to that chronically, you're going to have serious problems. And so that's what we see in these communities. 524 categorized mine sites on the Navajo Nation. A mine site, as they're categorized, could consist of multiple sites, so you're probably really looking at more around 1,000, at least that we know of. Of those 524, we have funds to clean up 219 of them, but that leaves another 305 sites across Navajo that aren't being addressed. It's a slow process because it happens in phases, and at the rate we're going, it could take 20 years before these other sites are addressed.
It makes me wonder, like, how do you just come in someone's home and just leave a mess and not care to clean up what you messed up, what you disturbed. And the mess that they left is hard to clean up because we don't even know the extent, in some places.
For us, we want the highest cleanup standard possible, but for these private responsible parties and even the federal government, it's really going to come down to the cost analysis. What's the cheapest thing we can do? It's expensive and it's bad PR, and so I think it's probably controlling both the cost as well as the public outcry. With the 219 sites that we have, there's about $1.7 billion available to address those sites, and we don't yet know if that's even going to be enough. And for the 305, another three, probably more like $4 billion to address it.
If everybody pitches a good game and will come and meet with us and talk with us and have a lot of ideas on how to address it, but nobody has ever come out and said, you know what, I'm coming out of pocket. I'm going to come out here and do all of these great things for you. It just doesn't happen. But because of how we live here and how we exist here, and I'm going to be very blunt about this, you put the same scenario in an area where there's privileged Americans, it doesn't exist like this.
I think the only difference between us and Flint is the amount of attention that was brought to it in terms of the media. And again, I think as Native people, Navajo people, we're kind of a forgotten people in that sense. And so, most people you poll won't know about these issues, but they'll know about Flint and what happened there. And so I think we've given a lot in terms of contributing to the freedoms that people have here. And we haven't asked really anything for it. And in this instance, I think addressing it and providing funding is the right thing to do.
For me, it's a matter of time. Will I see the effects of ingesting that water? Probably. I seen my father go through it, and I seen my close relatives go through it and experience cancer because of the uranium contamination.